Welcome to Cultural Catalyst, the podcast that shines a light on the creative visionaries working behind the scenes in arts and entertainment. I'm your host, Alison McNeil, CEO and founder of McNeil Creative Enterprises. With over 20 years of experience advocating for equity and sustainable growth in the arts and entertainment, I've seen firsthand the power of the behind-the-scenes creatives. Here on Cultural Catalyst, the creatives behind the curtain take center stage. Let's celebrate the people who make the magic happen. Let's dive in. Today's guest is PennyMaria Jackson. PennyMaria Jackson is a powerhouse behind some of the most memorable moments that have happened in theater dance. As Director of Marketing and Communications at Chicago's legendary Steppenwolf Theatre Company, she oversees campaigns that generate up to $7 million annually while helping guide the organization toward its 50th anniversary. With nearly 20 years in arts management, PennyMaria has worked with iconic institutions including the Apollo Theater, Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, and the Tony Awards. Her marketing campaigns have promoted performances featuring Ta-Nehisi Coates, Jason Moran, and Oprah Winfrey, while supporting groundbreaking works by Pulitzer Prize winner Brandon Jacobs Jenkins. Beyond the marquee names, PennyMaria is deeply committed to community impact, securing affordable tickets for locals and funding for artists affected by gentrification. Her passion for the arts was nurtured during her childhood in Miami at the African Heritage Cultural Center, and for over 25 years, she's been the strategic mind behind campaigns that don't just sell tickets, they build movements and create lasting cultural impact. Please join me in welcoming PennyMaria to the show.
Hello, Allison. It's so great to see you again.
You too. I am so excited about digging into what does it mean to be on the marketing and communication side of this arts and entertainment industry. So I'm going to invite us both to lean into this conversation as we explore. Okay, so your passion for the arts was nurtured at the African Heritage Cultural Arts Center in Miami as a child. Take us back to that time. What was it about that environment that sparked something in you?
Yeah, there was just this freedom to explore, encouragement to be curious. I remember trying to play an instrument because you can do anything there. And the teacher was like, baby, I think you should go back to drama class. And I was like, oh. And so, but just like the whole idea that they let you try everything, visual art. And if you're if they saw something there, they encourage you to keep working on it. And if not, they were like, oh, well, they encourage you to pursue what you had talents in. And so I appreciated all of the opportunities there. And it was just a lot of fun.
So how did you make the leap from being someone that loved the arts and loved being able to try different things to realizing you could build a career behind the scenes?
Yeah, well, that happened during my university years. Mm-hmm. So when I was preparing to go off to undergrad, my mother really was questioning my decision to get a degree in theater. And reminded me that I needed to take care of myself. And so I definitely decided to go ahead and get a second degree in journalism. And then I ultimately, throughout my time in college, I went to a PWI. Okay. And there were not a lot of performance opportunities for those of us of color, specifically Black. Did you want to play a maid? No, I don't want to play a maid. What else could I do? And so a cohort of us started kind of performing plays that one of our colleagues had written. And it just made me think more widely about issues performers and artists of color face in general. And I wanted to figure out how I could bring attention to it. Mm-hmm. And so, okay, I think I'm going to, I always knew I wanted to go to grad school. My grandmother, being an immigrant, just really always pushed me, get your schooling. I had that said, and I decided that I would pursue a degree. I found this special program at Syracuse University focus on arts journalism. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to be able to write about this and let people know which shows to see, how to support. And during that program, I learned more specifically about arts administration and really loved being in the theater, not just commenting on it, but being in the spaces where the art was created and supporting from within. And my career took off from there.
So, okay, what does it mean to be a director of marketing and communications? What does your day look like? I know there's no typical day, but tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
My day looks like back to back to back to back to back meetings at the department head. It's very, very busy. Often starting with an institutional leadership meeting or a sales meeting with my executive director and my deputy director of marketing, who really helps keep everything on track. We strategize a lot together, and we roll out everything to the team. Our department handles everything from the website. We collaborate with our partners in audience services who actually put the shows on sale technically through Tessitura, this software system that was made popular at Lincoln Center, and now a lot of arts organizations use it. We also manage all of the ads that anyone would see online, print ads, radio ads, out-of-home ads when we have extra money in the budget, like to make sure that we can put up our show art downtown so people can see it as they're like driving by on the bus or walking by. And we also try to help manage, of course, word of mouth and leverage it when it's really positive. And then, of course, there's the press side as well. So making sure that we are getting features. We try to get as many long leads as we can. It's about 3 months before a show starts. And also we have a wonderful creative director, in addition to press director, who really supports all of the visual assets. So making sure that we have the videos and the artwork in order to use on all of the different types of ads that I mentioned previously. So it's a robust team. We work together constantly, nonstop, and it really does take a small village to support the entire institution.
Yeah. And with different works coming through the institutions that you support, I always wonder, how does a marketing department know that this is the image that reflects the story that will get people interested in coming? Like, what's the science behind figuring out the way that you market?
Science.
Or is it an art?
I would say more of an art than a science,
Okay.
but it does science because there's a lot of experimentation, specifically with us returning from the pandemic. Things have really shifted. I think in general, everyone in the industry knows that memberships have been in decline. And so now that means we have to do a more targeted, a more expensive advertising approach to get single ticket buyers, right? And so that has also shifted the artwork and the way we select which image works best. So in the before times when Steppenwolf knew, okay, we're going to do members, and I should say that Steppenwolf is an ensemble theater company. That means there's a core group of artists that call the theater home. And so members before wouldn't even know what the play was, who wrote the play. They just knew that, hey, they were going to see great art from this group of people. And we would seat them immediately and have a very small portion of the audience to sell for single tickets. That has kind of flipped. And so now we still do our member load-in, but majority of the house is single tickets for a lot of performances.
Really? Oh, wow. So that is a huge shift. I feel like COVID changed everything, and like the things that made sense or the go-to techniques back then, even saying back then, that sounds random, but it required a new level of thought, intention, and resources, I imagine, because you're just not approaching things the same way. Let's see. I have so many questions. Like, I know you've worked in marketing and communications for some time, but what does it look like to do it for Steppenwolf Theater versus Apollo versus Alvin Ailey Dance Theater? Like, how does it differ? What's the process look like? Or is it the same?
Yeah, so there definitely is a lot of overlap. I think maybe the way in which art is secured is a bit different for Steppenwolf. Let's see, I'm thinking about like Steppenwolf is also known for creating new works. And so that part is really tricky, but I also face the same challenge, specifically at Alvin Ailey, where we would have a new ballet being set. And we were like, oh, wait, what image do we use? Or how do we talk about this? And so it's similar in that way, but also different in that sometimes we get older plays. So with Ailey, there would be like a Revelations, for example. Everyone already has a frame for that, right? So at Steppenwolf for our upcoming season, one of the older plays that we're doing is Amadeus. And so people know that in the theater world, and there was also a film. So that's a starting framework that we can use and build on for our campaigns. Overall, it's really just about making sure that people know about the show. So getting it out there in a variety of ways, and then also making sure that you're pricing the shows appropriately so that the target audiences that you're reaching out to can transact, as opposed to being hesitant because you priced it too high, or if you price it too low, not hitting your revenue goals, which then at a not-for-profit can be very challenging.
So do you recommend a price based on the content or market research? How does that work?
There are a number of factors that go into figuring out which shows can make more money, which we think might make a little less. At Steppenwolf, we have two main theaters that we use. One is 500 seats, your basic proscenium theater. The other one is a theater in around 400 seats. That's a little newer. But even with that, and knowing that the number of seats we sell is different, there's also the audience has slowly been adapting to the new space. So we know that capacity will normally be higher for the 500 seat theater, not only because it's larger, but because people are familiar with that space and feel comfortable with it. So you have to take all of these different things into consideration. We look at the playwright. Are they known or are they new? Have they had hits before? Have they had hits in Chicago, right? So maybe they're known in New York or LA, but not in the Midwest. We also look at ensemble members. Who of our ensemble will be performing in the show? Or is it one of their plays that they've written, or are they directing? Do we have 10 ensemble members versus one? Because if the more we have from the older, more classic audience who's been with us, there's a familiarity there again. So they're going to want to come and see those people on stage, even if they're no longer a member. They're going to say, oh, yes, I remember so-and-so. Let me go check that out, right? So we look at all of these different things. And then we also have show comparators. So it's kind of like a formula. And my deputy, Alan Wade, is so great at like figuring out all of the little numbers. We select which shows best align. And then we look at how much those shows made, how much were their average ticket cost, how many weeks did it run. And then we combine all of those. We look at what we did in the most recent year. And so it's like you're comparing general numbers to more specific numbers, and then looking at projections for the coming year. There's a bit of math and science involved after all.
Asking about the inside baseball tips to bringing what you bring to life. I did that on purpose because one of the reasons why I invited you all of the guests onto the show is because what you do behind the scenes is instrumental to what people experience, even being made aware of a production that they did not know. Like that's some thought that was going into that. And so sometimes you wonder, how did this get here? Or how come this show's not coming? And hearing you talk about that process shows you that it's never just, well, we just want this group here. There's always a formula behind why decisions are made the way that they are. Interesting. Okay, so you've worked with a wide range of artists. I mentioned earlier Ta-Nehisi Coates, Oprah.
So yeah, you're making me think about my days at the Apollo. The reason why I transitioned from Ailey to the Apollo was I was looking for a more advanced leadership position, and the Apollo had an opening and it worked out. So I went over there under Camila Forbes. even though they're known for Amateur Night at the Apollo, Camila had really been working to bring in more like theater. They had already started doing more dance, but really just leaning more heavily into the multidisciplinary art form, which I had experience at from my very first days at Harlem Stage. So I was like, okay, yes. And also the Cultural Arts Center, right? I took dance classes, tried to sing in the ensemble, all of these different things, right? So I had a framework for understanding these mediums and could help sell them. So the Apollo was really looking to reach a wider audience, but because the shifts that they were making in not only the range of forms that they were now centering on their stage, of course, there's such a legendary institution that there are a lot of big names that come there as well. It started to seem that some of the folks who used to come every week for amateur night, the local Harlem nights, they were kind of feeling like a little displaced a bit, right? And so I was really excited to be there and help reignite some programs like Half Off for Harlem and things of that nature to make sure that they had some sense of agency and ownership of the space as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that earlier today. I was speaking with Amina Cooper, and we were talking about her process for helping to figure out which art goes where and the importance of engaging the community in that process, both so they can see and be seen, like they can be a part of the conversation and have a sense of urgency versus we came in here and we're putting this art here and we hope you like it. You should like it because it's art. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So being able to both, what I hear you saying is like having a pulse on what is needed or wanted or missing and being able to fill those gaps is a part of what I hear you talking about in the way you approach the work. And that's not always evident. Like it's not a given. So I'm glad that you talked a little bit about that. Can you, for those that are listening, one of the shows that PennyMaria and the team at Steppenwolf worked on was Purpose by Brandon Jacobs Jenkins. It had its world premiere at your institution and went on to Broadway and won Best Play. Oh my goodness. So you're producing. What goes into crafting a campaign that honors the vision of a playwright while they're still reaching a broader community?
Yeah, I will just say that being a part of Purpose was so special. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before. I first got to see it at a play reading in New York where we had like 40 pages. But even then, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This is going to be amazing. And our artistic director, Glenn Davis, who's also in the play, I had worked to commission the show with Brandon for a few of our ensemble members, Alana Arenas and John Michael Hill. And you could just tell the way that they already all had chemistry together because they're part of the ensemble. And then layering into that, Brandon Jacobs Jenkins' words. And by the time the show was further developed and started to get into the rehearsal room under the direction of Felicia Rashad, like you could just feel how everything was becoming magical. It was quite a bit of a roller coaster. If anyone has like heard interviews before, they've heard that like, yeah, the play was not finished when we were technically supposed to start performances. For my marketing team, that was quite a journey trying to handle the fallout from that. But we were able to get patrons back in. And this show was so powerful. People came to see it 2 and 3 times. The team started off just knowing that the play was about a Black family, great class, great honor, and it was about legacy, holding on to your legacy while you're kind of trying to forge your own path. And so we pulled that into the artwork. At this point, we were doing illustration. And then there's always a point, no matter what artwork we choose to launch a show, to put it on sale, once we get closer to production and we get those images, once they're actually on the stage with lights, with costume, we switch over to that artwork and use that as well. And so there's like a sense of urgency, it just really elevates the campaign. So we were able to find that famous dinner scene image in our shots. And we were like, this is it. We're putting this photo everywhere. Update the ads. Then we got our reviews in. So we were like, okay, now let's go ahead and slap 4 stars on this, get that out. And it's all just very exciting because sometimes or oftentimes the show is great, but it may not be received that way by the press or the audience. So it's like you never know if people are going to feel what you feel. But just watching that show, like time and time again, peeking in, hearing the audience's response, seeing them leaving the show just changed, uplifted. We got so many survey responses, specifically from white people, because Steppenwolf was historically a white company founded by 3 young white teenagers and their friends, right? But over the years, of course, become more inclusive. But to hear so many of the members, many of whom have been with Steppenwolf for 50 years, we're approaching our 50th anniversary next year. But to hear them say, this was my family, like, or I can identify with this character, for me, that's what art is about. And like, it was just so amazing to do that once here in Chicago, help launch the show in New York on Broadway, working with the teams there, and to support them and just see how this is replicated and been magnified. It's just like, it really is like a testament to the work that everyone at Steppenwolf put into this, but also to everyone on that stage, everyone behind the scenes, the lighting folks, the stage managers, the ushers. Like it all takes, like I said, a village. Every night, at least in New York now through August 31st, people will continue to have this experience. This show was changed a little bit for New York. They made it a little funnier. There are different questions about how that change was made or why that change was made, but I think times are so heavy right now. Audiences just really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that. When you were talking earlier, I said to myself, oh, I gotta ask you, how does it go from premiering in Chicago then to going to Broadway? And what, if anything, changes as a part of the process? When I was reading, after I saw it, I was like, oh, I need to read more about it. And funny enough, I want to say maybe last fall, I was invited to a conversation to be one of the producers with another group, heard about it, saw, what the vision was. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. Like I felt like that. Then when to see it land and resonate with so many different people, I just got so excited. So when I saw it, I started looking at some of the earlier iterations, and I feel like I saw, maybe was it Tamara Tooney? I'm not sure. There was another woman.
Tamara Tooney was in the Chicago version.
Yes. And I was like, oh, let's see. So how does it happen? Is that a marketing, is that artistic job? How does it go from maybe one space with one cast and then moving into the next phase at like a Broadway?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of negotiations. It has a lot to do with the lead producer who's helping to facilitate everything, who's helping to secure a theater. It has to do with the actors' availability because things shift. Maybe they thought the show might go to Broadway, but when will that happen? And they might accept another opportunity. Or maybe initially there was one actor who was supposed to be in the show who couldn't be, but now they were going to New York. They can be. So there are a lot of different reasons why casting shifts happen. But specifically at Steppenwolf, we definitely tried to make sure that at least all of the ensemble members transfer over, and specifically because this play was written for John Michael and Glenn and Alana, they were able to transfer over. So we were excited for them. They all have won various awards throughout award season, so that's great as well. And yes, we try to take as much as we can when we're moving a production over. Sometimes it's just the script itself, so that may look a little different, but in this case, Steppenwolf, we were one of the producers collaborating with David Stone to take this to Broadway. So we were able to work on it and take as much as possible. And then, of course, they go back into the rehearsal room. So Brandon is like, well, actually, this is good, but I think this part could be better. So I'll give you a little behind the scenes for me personally. And if anyone hasn't seen Purpose yet, I guess you could just spoiler alert. In the original version, there's an argument with the mother and father, but the mother doesn't necessarily talk back in the way that I think this woman would in today's times. And in the Broadway version, she does. And I'm sure dramaturgically, they had some discussions around this. They came up in an era where women oftentimes did not speak back. But over the years, and that we're now in present day, I think she would. And she did. And I was so excited to see that on opening night.
Yes. Yes. Is this the first show that you've been a part of that has evolved in this way?
Yeah, this is the first play that I've seen from, I guess, beginning to the next generation. I'm not going to say the end because, purpose does have a future. I mean, throughout the years, because I am just like such a theater nerd, I've seen a number of plays go from off-Broadway to Broadway. And, I love like going with my friends and like trying to guess, do you think this is going to transfer? Oh, do you think this is? And will it keep the cast? I don't know. But this is the first time that I've actually like been in the rehearsal room and have seen the beginning to the current iteration.
What a gift to be so close to it. And I'm sure that as you're watching it, you can think about things about how to tell the story as you market. You and your team markets the show to other audiences. I often think about when I see advertisements, like, I wonder why that, like you said earlier, that picture is the one that depicts. Or when I go to shows that I love and then go back and look at whatever their marketing was, I'm like, true. Like I can see why that was the image that they chose to elevate. That is really cool. Yeah, okay.
We take a lot of beats throughout to see if there's a chance to update. Like even before we got the purpose production images, we arranged the headshots in a way that it looked like family photos on a wall. You're constantly kind of brainstorming, thinking about different ways to send the message to audiences to tell them a little more about what the play will be about.
I just want to echo the thoughtfulness and intention that goes into this work. And so the next time you see the advertisement for a show that's coming your way, there are people behind the scenes that have thought very hard about what image to use, why that image, where to place it. And people like PennyMaria are those people. We're here to give them their flowers because can be the thing that makes or break at reaching an audience. I often hear about, so I'm in the DMV area for those that are listening for the first time. And because I am in the arts and I'm a creative, I'm actively searching for what's happening. And so maybe I tell someone on the street, like on my neighbor, like, did you know that such and such is coming? And they're like, no, I didn't hear about it. And I'm like, I wonder why there wasn't any way to get directly to that person. Are they not listening to maybe the radio, maybe a church? I want to lift up Donna Walker-Kuhne's name in the space for all of that. Flowers to Donna for all that she does to engage audiences and ensure that marketing is placed in different communities so that they can come experience. And like we said earlier, the price points are accessible for the communities that would naturally enjoy the work. That is so thoughtful.
And I can clarify, some tickets are accessible. So one of the things that I've made sure to do at Steppenwolf is to keep our C zone accessible.
What does that mean?
So you kind of tier out the theater, and like some seats maybe in the center we would call zone A, a little further out zone B, and further out zone C. It's a balancing act with making sure we have affordable tickets, but also earning as much revenue as possible in order to keep the institution going, especially when there have been so many unexpected changes to the funding landscape lately. And so I just want to say we can't always make all super accessible, but we've done research that shows some people can pay $100, and so they will, but we're still going to have this $20 ticket so that people can't still get to enjoy the art.
This year on Broadway, where there were so many productions with Black cast and or led by Black playwrights, I was talking to some friends of mine that hadn't regularly gone to Broadway, but now they were going. And I asked, like, why did you go see this show? And I'm thinking in particular about Othello. And they were like, well, it was Denzel. So I'm going to see Denzel. And to your earlier point about people in Chicago being familiar with the ensemble, some people go to shows because they know the artist, some for the story. They're like, it's a good price point. I'll go. Or they feel like a connection to just art, and so they're just going to be open to whatever. Are there any other, I don't want to call it a profile, but when you're thinking about the typical type of audiences you prepare for, are there categories of people that you kind of name and say, this is for this group, or I'm not sure?
Yeah. So actually, we just had a team retreat yesterday, and we were talking about this very subject, something that I've been speaking about also with our board marketing committee, because we have like such talented board members who also want to give back with their expertise. So we've been discussing this as an institution. We had some profiles set up from before the pandemic, but clearly those have shifted. So we're at that point where we're reevaluating specific archetypes, so to speak, for our ideal ticket buyer or member. For example, we have a classic membership, which is usually older folks who maybe their kids have graduated already and they want to sit in their same seats for every show, and they want to buy all their tickets in advance. But we also have a flex membership, which is usually a younger person who may be single, or maybe they have a young child at home and they need that flexibility because they're not coming to every show, but maybe they'll bring 3 friends to one show, see a show by themselves. And then we have multi-single ticket buyers who, some of these people, they are the ones who have FOMO. So they don't want a real membership anywhere. They just always want to see whatever everyone is talking about. That's what they're going to go see. So
Yep, that's right.
2 or 3 of your shows of enough people talking about it. But they also are going to the museum. They also are going to the symphony. Like, they're going to whatever has the new art that's cutting edge or that's really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, one of the gifts about working at a place, I worked at Arts Presenters, or the Association of Performing Arts Presenters, way back when, the presenters come together in New York to experience a whole lot of art and figure out what art they're taking back to their centers. And you get to see so many decisions being made, or at least like thoughts around, this will be great for our audience, or let me connect with, they may not, this piece, our audience may not know they need it, but I think they can lean into it. Like, it's so thoughtful. And when I think about arts administration or behind the scenes work, oftentimes it's not talked about. I wonder, what's a misconception you think people have about the work you do?
Well, before that, I also will say there's a lot of research also that goes into trying to identify audiences. Some people have demographic information available. Sometimes it depends on how you capture information. Sometimes we do surveys. So that's also a part of trying to figure out exactly who our audience is and where we find more people who look just like them, so that they do get the word, they do see an ad rather than just getting word of mouth like your neighbor. And misconception, I will say that I think people might imagine that, oh, you work in theater, it's so fun, it must not be stressful at all. Yeah, no, it was very stressful when you just had assets created and they're like, oh, so-and-so is no longer in the show. What? I just paid for X, Y, and Z. Now we have to make the shifts. Oh, wait, did we order programs? Oh, now we have to. They're just always like unexpected changes that happen, or navigating responses from audience members who aren't happy. That can also be challenging, making sure that you're hearing them out and solving the problem if you can, or if it's something that is just the way your institution is because it's what you believe in, still having an appropriate response for that person to just be clear and transparent about that.
And I'm sure that if nothing else, it has to be appreciated. I guess maybe not always, depending on the person's what they have to say.
Been accused of being too woke.
What does that mean, PennyMaria?
Yeah. So maybe over a year ago, a couple of years ago, we were doing membership research and we had one member who said, "Oh, you're a little woke, but I'm hanging in there, but I know people who have left." And then in the next focus group, a man came on and said, "Yeah, you all are too woke, so I'm no longer a member. I live in Florida now. I'm not in Chicago." And I think it just shows also a different frame of reference about what's acceptable or what isn't, what's politically correct. Everyone, makes a choice for themselves. But I think to your question about what is too woke, I think they were specifically noting that Steppenwolf now produces shows that oftentimes will include people from different races and backgrounds and identities, both then when the theater was first founded.
I think about what we are navigating in the world today and in the US in particular, and then to hear comments like this, it's crazy that in 2025, the lack of appreciation for diversity or seeing it as a value or a benefit versus a deficit still exists. Find myself like, we at MCE, we only work with a certain type of client. Like, we want to know, like, if they are exploring change and they want to use, for example, program evaluation or research, because we also do research, we want to know that there is a commitment, whether the research looks quote unquote favorable or it creates an opportunity, so that it's not just for, the grant report or to tell a great story, but it's really you're committed to doing something that helps you meet your ultimate goal. And when doing research, you collect data, and depending on how you manipulate it, you can get all kinds of insights. And I talk about that a lot with our team for the integrity of data and how we communicate. We've started framing our insights as these are the things that are contributing to your success or hindering your success. And so then our clients have the opportunity to choose. Well, if we don't want quote unquote this, then, we'll keep doing this. Or we could better reach our goal if we would just X, Y, Z. So when they choose to do something different, that's a choice. And watching people make the choice has been fascinating over the years, especially depending on what the climate is like. And it seems like we just got out of COVID and now we're in a whole nother crisis, unprecedented time, I think is a phrase that was used before. And it often makes me wonder about those of us that are working behind the scenes that know the power of equity and inclusion and diversity, and us advocating for what we know creates value in spaces that maybe don't see it or don't honor it or don't value it. It can be so oppressive and suffocating. If you've navigated that, I wonder if you've navigated that rather in your career, because sometimes it happens in spaces you don't even expect.
First, I want to acknowledge your word choice of opportunity and how you look at all of the information. So I just want to quickly say that, yes, we took in what that former member was saying, but also looked at the flex members or some of the younger members who said they appreciate what we do and it really means a lot to them to see different people and hear different stories on stage. And we continued to lean into that opportunity and we're able to produce purpose. So, right, I think you're right. It's a choice. You have to choose what you want to do. Now, your question about kind of navigating, I think if you're wanting to stay at that company, you just have to be very mindful about what you can and can't do, how far you can push things to maybe still affect change, even if it's on a smaller level. And then when you're really at odds with that company, I think it's time for you to move on and find a place where you are more aligned and that it's more open to allowing you the freedom to make that change happen. Or maybe they're already changing and they're looking for support and you're both on the same page. Yeah, I think you push where you can and you have to switch it up if you're not able, if the company is going somewhere that you're not comfortable with. Understanding that everyone can't do that, right? It's hard to find a position or there are different restrictions. And maybe you find another outlet, like, okay, at work, I can't do this, but after work, I can meet up with this group and we can contribute to making this impact.
being able to rely on community when you're in spaces like that so that you don't have to navigate it alone is
Exactly.
critical, because it can be very demoralizing. And so definitely having outlets and or deciding, you know what, my time here it's served its purpose and it's time for me to go. I think that that is important to speak about, especially in these times. I want to talk about corporate partnerships. Like when we were looking up the work that you've done, and we saw that you've built partnerships with Coca-Cola, HBO, Spotify. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, this was specifically at the Apollo, which is has such a name for those partnerships that you referenced specifically. So there is some partnerships that were already in place, some that were just getting started. So I was able to support the institution throughout a lot of those conversations. I think Coca-Cola had already been a partner with Apollo for a number of years, but during my tenure there, the flexibility that my team had with the resources that they provided was just really so amazing. Like, again, that half off for Harlem initiative, like them leading their money to that was very important for us. I think every year, I'm not sure if they still do this, but there was like a special holiday event under the marquee where people could have free photos with Santa, right? And Black Santa on 125th Street, right? So that's very meaningful for the community. I think for me, my most exciting moment specifically with Coca-Cola was the VR experience that we created. And we actually were able to have a team come in and kind of capture Billy, who we call Mr. Apollo. He's been there like, I don't know. If you have followed the Apollo, you know this man. He's such a cool heart. He's been there since a child and, was giving tours and everything. So we created this experience where people would come into the lobby before a show, sit down, put on the headset. In the headset, you see Billy saying, "Hey, welcome to the show. You're going to get on stage soon. Let me take you backstage." And so you would like navigate, go backstage to the green room. He's like, "Are you ready?" And then he would take you onto stage and you could literally see the audience cheering you on as if you're on stage. You look behind you, see the band playing. It was just such a magical experience and an opportunity that so many of us go to see shows, but how many people have never been a performer ever, not even when they were little, right? They don't know what that's like. And I mean, being able to see the younger folks who are like kids enjoying it to some seniors like, ooh, like screaming as they had the headset on. It was just like, wow, like creating that connection to entertainment and art was just, and technology, right? It was just so exciting. So definitely appreciated the funds to experiment, do all these sorts of, as I say, experiments.
When success looks like so many different things depending on the person that's making the definition, for someone in marketing and communications, what does success look like? How do you know you've been successful?
Yeah, I feel like this question also came up recently as well for our team as we are wrapping up the current season, in which we were $2,000 away from our $2.5 million single ticket goal.
Wow.
Yeah, so like and I should say sales really, really dipped in January when things started to shift. So we had quite a bit of money to make up. But the fact that we were only $2,000 away from our projections, when going back to our earlier conversations, how do you figure out what the right price is, right? That is an absolute win for everyone on my team. When we have maybe a pre-show event and we're working with a community partner to welcome more people into the space, maybe who haven't been to theater, right? And creating a special conversation where they get to meet the artist or someone else from the community who they haven't gotten a chance to hear from yet. For example, I'll go back to Purpose. We worked with the Black Arts and Culture group here in Chicago, and they were able to bring in someone who was the granddaughter of Mr. Stenick Abbott, who created the Chicago Defender. So again, when you're talking about on stage versus real life, having someone who has a legacy in their family and how they're carrying that legacy forward while they're navigating a new path. Like, it's just creating all of these different opportunities to give people these unforgettable, like you said in the intro, these unforgettable experiences, right? To make sure that they can connect to the art like they never have before. Like, that's success for my team. When we work with our education and engagement department to create information that can help prepare people for the show, maybe talk about themes in order to have them in the right mindset so that people can be in the right place to receive whatever the message is from that show. That's success. So I think we measure it a number of ways. Definitely word of mouth. If people are talking about us and encouraging people to buy tickets, that's the ultimate success.
Ever wish you had a clear way to describe the real impact of your creative work? Well, that's why I created the Impact Roadmap, a practical guide to help artists, cultural leaders, and consultants describe their impact with clarity and use it to strengthen their storytelling, fundraising, and strategy. Grab your copy at mcearts.com and start mapping your impact with confidence and purpose today. I'm so glad you said there's so many ways of knowing that something's a success, and art in particular, where, many people might experience the same piece of work and have very different reactions. Does that mean it was successful? Does that mean it wasn't? And for those people that believe that the role of art is to provoke or to just get conversations going, is that the measure of success? I think what we find out a lot in our business or the work that we do on our side of the ecosystem, it's creating space to open the dialogue around that reality, that success can look a number of ways. And there's multiple ways of knowing that something has met its goal. And it may look exactly like you expect it to look, and it may not. And it can be both and still beneficial. So thank you. Thank you for offering that.
I will add the ultimate success, I guess, honestly, the most ultimate for me, going back to our conversation about like watching purpose develop, like to be there in the space at night at Radio City Music Hall when they said best play purpose, like, oh my goodness, like I still like, oh my gosh, just my whole body
Yeah.
cannot contain the energy. Just like I jumped so high, like going back to my former dance days when I was young. I jumped so high.
Rewarding.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because you know what it means to so many people. And when I say that, I mean the artists, the audience, the people that make it possible for it to get to the stage. It's just a win all the way around. I was excited too.
I also will say that another form of success for me personally is when your mentors compliment you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. Let's give flowers to your mentors.
Well, like, okay, so, women of color in the arts, of course.
I think I've heard of that.
So I did their mentorship program, and Stephanie Hughley was my mentor in that program. And to hear people like her, Colleen Jennings-Roggensack, who's on the Broadway committees, Baraka Sele, you mentioned Donna Walker-Kuhne earlier. Like, these are women who I've watched lead the path forward. And to hear them give me any type of congratulations or, oh, that's amazing news. Like, I feel like, yes, I am on the right path. My grandmother Lilette is proud of me. Like, I can feel that energy flowing through. I just feel the answer. So it's wow, to think about all the people who contributed to me throughout the years, going back to the Cultural Arts Center, Rodney Ateem Johnson, who was yes, you need to learn this Medea monologue. I was like, Medea, what's that? It's all these people along the way, or one of my professors in undergrad who was no, we're gonna figure out how to get you to grad school, Professor Anthony Major. It's all of these people. It's when you achieve a success, you're doing it with all of their help and guidance, and also pushing the path forward for the next person. I'm the first Black woman that's the director of marketing and communications at Steppenwolf, right?
Can we pause for the cause? Hold on. Let's pause. That's huge. Because what we know is Black women come with a certain lens. And we know when we're involved, everybody's going to get space to be seen. It's never just us. Like,
Exactly.
we can make sure that we love on Black folks, because that's what we're going to do. But we're also going to make space for others. And I think to be the director of marketing and communications at a place like Steppenwolf, it's just such a huge statement.
It really is. And I mean, I told them from day one, like, no, I lead in a democratic style, very much community focused, very much Bessie Faka, if you know, like the Ghanaian Adinkra symbols, right? It's like, no, I want to hear what the marketing assistant has to say, right? Because they have a perspective that can be useful to us. It takes all to make everything we do a success. And so I've been fortunate with this opportunity to kind of lead in that way and have just such a great team of people who are invested in the theater as well to help as we navigate all of the challenges that the arts industry faces, right?
For the listeners that may be, I'm gonna go back a little bit for the listeners that may be wondering what we were talking about when PennyMaria said women of color in the arts and the amazing, incredible elders. Shout out, flowers to Stephanie Hughley, flowers to Baraka Sele, flowers to Colleen Jennings-Roggensack, and flowers to Donna Walker-Kuhne. They are titans in the industry. And as a co-founder of Women of Color in the Arts, or WOCA, Kaisha Johnson and I had very intentional conversations about bringing those voices into the space as advisors, because they've been there, they've done that, as well as some others that were our peers at the time. It's important to be able to stand on the shoulders and know that that's how you got there. And also, to your point, be a part of what it looks like to usher in the next generation. And WOCA is all about, how do we create space for each other? How do we remove the isolation that may exist because you might be the only one? We advocate for ourselves as we navigate these paths that aren't always made for us, and being able to be in community with so many Black women and other women too, of other different ethnicities. It's been powerful to see how the field has changed since WOCA has been around and the relationships that have been developed. And you're right. When one of those titans that I just mentioned, that you just mentioned, says, good job, add Shea Wafer into the conversation, and so many more. I'll be here for a while trying to name everybody, but it's like, if they said I did good, I must have done something. I must be doing good, right? So yes, that is amazing. Listen, I have kept you on talking about all this richness for so long. We've talked about the work. We've talked about the intention. We've talked about the impact of that work. How do you take care of you in these stressful environments where you're juggling multiple high stakes campaigns and trying to figure out different personalities, different deadlines? Like, how do you make sure that you stay grounded and maybe have space for wellness?
Well, health insurance is great.
Hello.
So I love that Evolution has a good health insurance program there are a lot of great doctors here. I have a doctor who's a woman of color. That's amazing because that's hard to find. I have purchased myself a subscription to one of these, or a membership, I guess, to one of these massage places where you go every month.
Yes.
So I treat myself to a massage at least once a month. That's the goal. It's not like the day spa where you can luxuriate all day, but it's just enough to go and like, yes, get this. This is not right here. Thank you so much.
Right.
And then, of course, as I was mentioning earlier to you, I think before we officially started recording, I go to New York often to be with the community that I had built there since I was there for over 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So getting to connect with my friends there who may have started as colleagues or who I know from like the Harlem Arts Community Group, like whatever that is, meeting up with them, seeing the show, grabbing some food, sometimes going to see like their babies, you know, like all of that, where my community like is, right? That really fills my cup. And then just trying to catch up every so often. You and I haven't had a call in a while, but you know, just trying to check in with other folks, I think can also be really helpful.
I'm so glad that we have been able to catch up over the years. And yes, we do need a catch up. And speaking about the importance of community and laughter and just being with your people, like when you work in such high stake, high stress environments, you can take for granted like the pace or the schedules you keep. So I'm so glad that you take the time to take care of you through your monthly rituals and your regular visits to where your community is. I'm going to end it on this. If you could whisper one piece of advice to someone just starting out in arts management or marketing, whichever, what would it be?
I kind of want to say, try to find a mentor. Try to find someone who's doing what you want to do or something similar, that you can have that guidance, that perspective as well. That framing can be very helpful. I know it's someone who I also met at through APAP, Omari Rush. Like sometimes I will call him, he's executive director at Culture Source in Detroit. And I'll just, Omari, this happened. Like just to get that perspective. Like it's so helpful and important. So I think that is the most important. I probably would also add, figure out what you do well, what's special about what you do so that you can stand out. So for example, like I've been doing marketing forever, right? But for me, like that audience development or community engagement piece is something that I really lean into that lots of marketers might not focus on because they're like, no, we need to sell $100 tickets, right? But also because of my background, because of my experience growing up, leaning into that community portion, which ultimately is an important piece of the pie as well, if you're looking to expand your audience overall.
That's right. That's right. Any final words, thoughts, messages that you'd like to share with the Cultural Catalyst community?
I want to also give flowers to you. Thank you for doing this, for putting this podcast together. You are also one of the people who was like an innovator in the industry, right? Always trying to figure out how we can make things better. And I think even in terms of arts administration, right? Would my career be different if I had gotten a degree in arts administration? Might I be a little further along or might have met other people like you? So this hopefully will give folks some insights to these different opportunities behind the scenes. And yeah, just your flowers for that.
Thank you. I received those flowers, but honestly, I said there's no direct way for people to know what this looks like behind the scenes. Like you can see people on stage or people creating art visually, and you're like, oh, I can go do that. But so many people that I talk to that are now are working in what's now called arts administration, they didn't even know that that was a thing when they got started. So I'm hopeful that this message reaches all of the people that it needs to. In fact, this first season, people that I didn't even expect were listening, reached out like, I really appreciated that. I shared it with my graduate students. I shared it with one of my sons, or someone asked me to put it on their grad school curriculum. And then people that were just curious, like, oh, I never knew how that worked. And so it reaches who it needs to reach. And also from a marketing standpoint, we are doing better about getting the word out, right? About what it is that we're doing. So thank you. And thank you, PennyMaria, for coming on to Cultural Catalyst. You are now a part of our archive, and I'm so excited about it.
Thank you. Yes. If you'd like, I'd sing us off. I'll sing us off. A one, a two, a one, two. No.
Oh, wait. We didn't tell people how to get in touch with you or how to follow your work.
Yeah, so if you go on LinkedIn, I have an account there. Okay. So people can get in touch with me through that. I also have a website, ArtzVenture.com, arts with a Z, not an S, ArtzVenture.com. you can email me directly through there. And yeah, I think there's a phone number on there as well. So if people text me, I'm usually a little better at text messages. But again, going back to what you said about like having those peaceful moments, I try not to be in email too much when I get home because our work days can be so long in the theater, right? So yes, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you don't get a response, just follow up. And I look forward to supporting like who I can when I can.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. And to our audience, another amazing conversation with the Cultural Catalyst. And we hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Cultural Catalyst. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us for more inspiring stories from the world of arts and entertainment. You can find me on social media at MCEArts and Alison T. McNeil on LinkedIn. Please leave a review and tune in to our next episode for more creatives behind the curtain. See you next time.